everyone, this is Maria and I'm 60 years old and I recently served on a jury for the very first time. It was a 6-day trial and it was a very interesting experience and I learned a lot. So from my personal experience, I'll be giving you some tips in this video that may help you when you are chosen to serve on a jury. So the first thing I want to talk about is the actual courthouse location and the parking. You want to make sure you know where the courthouse is. Don't just depend on GPS to get you there early in the morning, because remember, you're going to go through commuter traffic. There are car accidents on the freeway and things like that. One morning there was even an accident near the courthouse and my husband had to drive all the way around. And so you just never know what to expect, so allow ample time to get to the courthouse on your first day when you report for jury duty, and thereafter if you are chosen to serve as a juror. And then you want to know your parking situations. From what I understood from some of the jurors is that some courthouses had allocated parking just for jurors and some don't. At the San Bernardino Superior Courthouse where I was at, the parking lot at the courthouse was only a 3-hour parking. And so some of the jurors would go out there and they would move their car around after when it got close to 3 hours. And then they would rush back, and there was a few times they would barely make it in the nick of time as we entered the courthouse. So make sure you know your parking situation. If you're in a parking structure, or also in San Bernardino, they have parking lots. There's a lot of construction going on around there. And so it was quite a hike for some of the jurors, especially if you have a medical problem and also if you don't have a disability plaque. I think the situation might be different for disability, so be sure to check into this. The next thing on my list is to make sure you get plenty of sleep, plenty of rest the night before you go to the courthouse. Because you're going to need it, you guys, because you're going to be listening to a lot of information. You're going to be processing a lot of information. You're going to be taking notes, and you need to be on top of your game. Because if you're not fully rested, your mind may wander during a testimony, and you may miss out on some very important and crucial information. So we all know that breakfast is very important, and so I cannot stress that enough. Be sure to eat a good breakfast before you go to the courthouse, because this meal is going to carry you through most of the day until you have your lunch break. So our jury group did get a lunch, an hour-and-a-half lunch between the 2 testimonies that we heard each day. And so you want to make sure that you take something to eat, because sometimes you may not know places around the courthouse. And where I was at, there's really nothing down there, you guys. The first day I was there, I walked like almost 3 miles total to and back to get to a Starbucks. I also worked down in that area before in the 90s, so I know where there's a little restaurant down there, but I really didn't feel like going all the way down there. They did have a cafe inside the courthouse, but they had mostly like junk food. They had a few hot things to eat, like hot dogs and things like that, which I'm not really into. And so I would go down there and I'd get a candy bar. And so I was picking up that bad habit again of a candy bar. So I had like a payday candy bar, and I would also get an iced tea. But I would take along some water, and I also took a banana and some oranges to have for snacks. Also, you may want to take along something to read, like a book, a magazine, or have your cell phone, and make sure it's charged up, you guys, because you may be there for a long time. So the next thing I want to talk about is sitting. Sitting for a long time. Sitting. You're going to sit a lot. And so if you have a low back problem or a sciatica problem, or it bothers you to sit for long periods of time, you might want to think of taking a cushion to put on your chair. The chairs that we were sitting in the courtroom were very, very comfortable. The chairs in the deliberation room were not comfortable for me. And so also outdoors, there was a lot of benches, but they were made of like concrete, and there was marble benches inside the courtroom. And so they were really pretty, and I could sit on them for a good while, but after a while, it really takes its toll. And to help keep the circulation moving, you may want to take a short walk during your breaks. So now let's talk about the bathrooms. When nature calls, and even when nature doesn't call, you should make a run for the bathroom anytime before you enter the courtroom. In the morning after you arrive at the courthouse is a good time, also during breaks. But if you do have to go during the trial, we were told that we could raise our hand, and then the bailiff would come over, ask us what we needed, if someone needed to go to the restroom, and so then we were ushered out of the courtroom. But I will be honest, it did break up the testimony for me. I especially remember the first time because the plaintiff's attorney was questioning the witness in the witness stand, and I was really into the testimony, and all of a sudden, there was a bathroom break. And no, it wasn't me, you guys. But when we came back into the courtroom, he continued, and I believe there was only one question left, but I have to say at that moment, I was just sort of out of it, you guys. I wasn't focused. So just remember to visit the facilities before you enter the courtroom. But if you gotta go, you gotta go. Notebooks. You're going to be given a spiral notebook and a pen to take lots of notes during the trial. This will help you retain your memory because you're going to hear a lot of information. You may think that you will remember it all, but you won't. And so because it's just so much coming at you. And so there's just a lot to digest and take in, and you're not allowed to discuss the trial with anyone. And so you have to do something so you will remember it yourself, because when we talk with others, it helps us to remember. And so I thought I could even talk to my Chihuahua about this, but actually, to be honest, I think I only mentioned something once to him. He just didn't seem interested. And so it just had those big Chihuahua eyes. So now I want to show you this mock notebook that I made up. I just stapled some pages together, but it's about the same size as the one we had in the courtroom. So this is what worked for me. At the top of the page, I would put whoever was speaking. In this case, it was one of the attorneys with opening statement. And so maybe the attorney says something that really strikes a chord with me, and I don't want to forget it because I may need to refer to it later. And so I just wrote it down, put a circle around it, put arrows, whatever works, you guys, because my eye, when I open up my notebook, it's going to zero in on this. And so I could see who was speaking at the top, and I did have to do that a couple of times, you guys. And so right here, here's another example. I went ahead and put the whatever I was saying in here, put the circle around. I even wrote this, an exclamation mark, and then I folded the page up. And so this also told me, this is something I really want to look at, maybe. But if you have to look at it, it's there. If you don't, well, you know it's there. And here's another example from another page. And by now my notebook is starting to look like origami. And so I was just folding these pages up any which way, and it just told me that there's something very important that I need to look at here. We were not allowed to take these notebooks out of the courtroom. Also, we were not allowed to bring them home when the trial was over. And when we were in the deliberation room, each time the judge or the bailiff walked into the room, we had to put our notebooks face down or any other paperwork face down. Also, be sure to have an extra ink pen with you because you never know when your inkwell is going to go dry. But you can always raise your hand and ask the bailiff for another ink pen. But why break up the flow of the testimony? Take an extra pen. So on the first day, our bailiff gave us a contact number to reach her if we were going to be late or if there was a situation or we're stuck in traffic, something like that. And so we did have her contact information. So be sure when you're given that information, keep it in your wallet because you may need it. And life does happen. And one day I do remember a juror came flying in at the last second into the courtroom after we had been all seated. I noticed her face looked flushed, and so I knew she had probably run all the way from the parking lot into the building, had to go through security, up the elevator, and down this long hallway to get to the courtroom. So yeah, so keep the bailiff's phone number or contact information in your wallet and don't lose it. And now the deliberation room. I have one thing to say, be respectful. I mean, don't point fingers. You don't have to yell and say things that maybe are going to be hurtful to others. Everyone in there just has a different opinion. We come from all walks of life. And so just be respectful to everyone as you're making your decision. That's all I got to say about that. That's all I better say about that. And here's the last thing on my list. After the verdict is given and the court is adjourned by the judge, take the opportunity to speak to the attorneys that are outside of the courtroom. So when the trial was over, we filed out of the courtroom and the defendant's attorney was outside the courtroom doors and we got to talk to him. And I found him very interesting. And so he was asking us questions. He really cared about what we thought about the trial. And I think they were asking questions maybe because it will help improve another trial in the future. And they really listened to us. And I was really impressed by that. And then we continued toward the elevators where the plaintiff's attorney was waiting, and he also spoke with us, and I also found him very interesting. So remember, during the duration of the trial, you are not allowed to talk about anything. You cannot look anything up on the internet, no Google, no social media sites, nothing like that, no dictionaries, anything like that. And so that was really hard for me. And because you could tell I am a talker, right? And so, but anyways, after the trial, you can talk. And so that's what I did. I talked and talked and talked and talked. So my husband heard everything, my chihuahua heard everything, my friends heard everything, my sisters heard everything, and I even spoke to my hairdresser about it. I also spoke with my son's girlfriend, who is a psychiatric nurse, and also with my friend, a good friend of mine, and one of my co-authors, and she is a retired doctor, and they all felt that I really did make the right decision in the deliberation room. And I know that some of my fellow jurors might have thought that I was being really stubborn. I even questioned myself too, because I do want to be objective. I felt like I really listened to all the testimony. At the end of the day, I really feel like I made the right decision in the deliberation room. And just a reminder that everyone is going to think differently, and just respect everyone. And it all turned out good in the end. So thanks for watching this video. I hope these tips are helpful to you. And if you have any other tips on what it's like to be a juror and what to expect, just leave those comments below in the comment section. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.